When I was coming into this, I said the only reason I'll ever make an Irish whiskey company is to make the world's most luxury, most collectible Irish whiskey company, not for my own personal ego, it's because it's really more a passion about my country. Ireland invented whiskey. We perfected whiskey. We put it all across the world, and if you're around in the 1800s, 1870, 1890, 1910, 84% of the world whiskey market was Irish whiskey, and if you were anyone of wealth back then, you were drinking Irish whiskey. Scottish wasn't really even exported until after World War II properly. That's really when it started to take off. World War II is in the 1940s, late 1940s, early 50s is when Scotland really started to take off. But most people think it's been around for hundreds of years, and while it has, it's been making whiskey in Scotland since the 1600s. It hasn't really been around the world. It was the Irish that were around the world with phenomenal whiskey. If you're in South America or North America and drinking whiskey, that you were drinking Irish whiskey. So if we were always for centuries at the top of the hierarchy of whiskey and always seen as the ultra premium, what happened? And when I found out what happened, and it was all geopolitical and it wasn't really any fault of the people falling out of love with the flavor of the whiskey, it was purely to do with the fact that we couldn't set sail to distribute whiskey anymore because World War I started in 1913. German U-boats sank passenger vessels like the Lusitania coming from America, and when they started sinking passenger vessels, it was unsafe to set sail with whiskey anymore, so that all ground to a halt. So now we can't distribute, and of course the government can't really support anymore. We're at war with Britain to have our own government. During all this time, the 1916 rising in Dublin, lots of distilleries got taken over by rebel forces and they got destroyed, which was the heart of Irish whiskey making. The barley that was being used to make the whiskey was taken to feed the soldiers fighting World War I, so you can't make it, you can't distribute it. Rebel forces are taking over and some distilleries are getting held up and destroyed. And then finally, when all that came to end in 1919 and we could get back to business, America goes into prohibition, so you can't trade with your biggest partner. We're at war with England for our independence, so we obviously get embargo from trading with Commonwealth countries. And by World War II, with all of these embargoes and wars and trade wars, you basically had an entire market that got decimated. The world's #1 whiskey market had a 99% market share drop between World War I and World War II, and it never recovered. And only 4 distilleries survived and banded together and formed one. And when I found out this story, while it is a bit of a long story, it brought a tear to my eye. I read a book from 1879, The Truths About Whiskey, and I just seen how big we were when I was reading this book about how amazing Irish whiskey was. But yet now I travel the world as an Irishman, and all we're known for was Jameson, which really only, Jameson bottle only came out in 1966, 1968, something like that. And it was a blended cheap Irish whiskey. We weren't known for that. What we were known for was 70, 80 years before that was the highest quality whiskey you could imagine. And now we're known for the cheapest possible whiskey you can imagine. No disrespect to Jameson, but it is a cheap blended whiskey. About 80, 90% of it's grain, not even stuff that's from Ireland. Like grain is corn, right, predominantly, and that's not even grown in Ireland. So I just thought to myself, you know what, if I'm going to go all in on whiskey, as a connoisseur myself, as a lover of whiskey, I'm going to make the finest whiskey I possibly can. I'm going to design it as good as we can and make the best possible quality whiskey we can. I just decided to start looking at what other techniques I can use to make fine whiskey. What are people not doing that I can do to make it taste better?